A decision decades in the making in a case that's pitted iron ore dynasties against each other and themselves. In one corner, the daughter of Lang Hancock, Australia's richest woman, Gina Rinehart. In another, Gina's oldest children, John and Bianca. Then there's the family of Lang's business partner, Peter Wright, of the Wright prospecting empire. His daughter, Angela Bennett, and her nieces, Leonie Baldock and Alexandra Burt, all of them also billionaires. The final fighter is family company DFD Rhodes, founded by late Pilbara pioneer Don Rhodes.
It's one large WA Supreme Court case, but that almost kind of doesn't really do it justice. It's a web of complex legal claims that are really bound by one common question: who is ultimately entitled to the royalties of Hope Downs?
And going through a gorge in the Turner River, I noticed that the walls looked to me to be solid iron.
Lang Hancock and Peter Wright were old school friends who had decided to team up in what became a very lucrative partnership.
Mr. Hancock has got the most driving imagination. He comes up with more imaginative ideas than any other person I've ever met. On the other hand, they're not all workable, in my view anyhow, workable ideas.
From a young age, Hancock's only child, Gina, was primed to take over the family business.
How does it feel to look at all that iron ore lying in the ground that one day is going to be yours?
Bloody good.
Is she as tough as you?
Oh, tougher, yeah, by a long way.
One of Hancock and Wright's most prized assets was a site now known as Hope Downs.
My father chose to name this deposit, and in fact the series of deposits, after my mother, Hope Hancock. It certainly has turned into the most major project for our company, and so I think it's very fitting.
By the late 70s, Hancock and Wright were trying to decide how to evenly divide their iron ore assets, including Hope Downs.
There were numerous letters exchanged that became critical evidence during the trial, in which Lang Hancock delivered what almost now feels like a very prophetic warning, telling Peter Wright that there were to be no grey areas that their respective heirs could possibly fight about, and that if they didn't, the risk was that lawyers would end up being the ones who got a very large share of the pickings.
Indeed, lawyers have made millions over the years. Hope Downs is the latest battlefront, now a profitable joint venture for Hancock Prospecting with Rio Tinto.
Wright Prospecting claims that Hope Downs was quite clearly a partnership asset to which they were supposed to enjoy royalties.
Gina Rinehart rejects the claims.
Her lawyers argue that she was the one who invested a lot of time, energy and money into developing these assets, and it can't now be for Wright Prospecting to come along and enjoy the spoils.
The litigation has also dragged in two of Ms Rinehart's children, John and Bianca, who claim she tried to cut them out of their share in Hope Downs, set aside for them by their grandfather in a family trust.
I think when your back's up against the wall, you just have to come out fighting.
The children claim that while their mother was trustee, she inked what amounted to death warrant deals for the trust, and that it was essentially left as an empty shell. It almost read like a soap opera, really, the kinds of allegations we heard. Mrs Rinehart's legal team maintained that actually what she was doing was reversing the wrongs of her father. They claim that on his deathbed, he admitted that he had been siphoning assets out of the company empire in order to fund the very lavish lifestyle that he was living at the time, and that it was his dying wish to reverse what he had done.
Hi, it's nice to see you. Come on in.
Lang's lifestyle became more lavish when he married his housekeeper, Rose Porteous. The relationship was a well-publicised point of friction with daughter Gina.
It's been 6 years since iron ore magnate Lang Hancock passed away, and still the two women in his life are at war.
Well, I think that really the less I say about Rose, the better.
The court heard John Hancock stood by his mother during her legal battle with Rose Porteous, believing he was in line to one day take over the family business.
I think my mum will want to carry on with the company for quite a few years yet, sort of queen bee position. If I can be a worker bee alongside her, then that'll be good.
But he says shortly after Gina and Rose called a truce, he was told he was no longer needed.
John told me that he was blindsided by the decision. He had wanted to work for Hancock Prospecting. He considered himself the heir apparent, and he claims that was Lang Hancock's wishes.
John Hancock says he began asking questions about what he was entitled to through the trust, which eventually led to claims that were wrapped up in this latest trial. Gina Rinehart never attended the hearings. On a day her daughter Bianca was in court, Gina was less than a kilometre away, delivering a keynote address at a bush summit.
Growing up on stations, the family unit is close and trusting, as ours certainly was.
This has had an extraordinary effect on the family. John Hancock has spent most of his adult life waging war with his mother. His mother doesn't have a relationship with his own children. It's an extraordinary family feud, and I don't think we've seen the end of it.
Today's judgment is complicated and several parties are claiming a win, although in reality it's more of a mixed bag. Right Prospecting won its claim for some of the royalties from Hope Downs, but lost in the bigger fight for ownership. DFD Roads also lost its ownership bid, but partly won its claim for royalties. Justice Jennifer Smith also found that John and Bianca's ownership claims fail at the first hurdle, and the assets in question belonged to Mrs. Rinehart's company, Hancock Prospecting. In a statement, John Hancock described it as a difficult pill to swallow. The children's claims were referred to a private arbitration. John says he hopes the family can reconcile. The case is due back in court next week for a hearing over costs. The judgment is more than 1,600 pages long, and the parties have said they'll review it in detail before deciding their next move.
We're talking a legal spend worth tens of millions of dollars, possibly upwards of $100 million between all of the parties fighting this court action since 2010. And it's not over yet.